Let's see what you got today for the mail. Bank account, taxes, more taxes, even more taxes, ads. What is this? They're Egyptian hieroglyphics. Whoa. No. Wait, but this, how is it no. That's strange. Wait, no. This can't be. This can't be real. I guess I learned something new about Egyptian hieroglyphics. That I don't know how to read them. Now, I might not know much about Egyptian hieroglyphics, but I do know a lot about the ancient Egyptians' history, which is the reason why I'm actually doing this video and why you probably clicked it. You want to know about the Egyptians. Well, I'm going to be talking about their culture and also about pretty much their history of how they started and how they fell. So, get ready, my friends, because I'm not ready. I'm still in my pajamas.
Egypt, a very well-known country for its hot deserts and ancient civilization. If it weren't well-known, it wouldn't be movies like The Mummy, Transformers, and even The Exorcist. Look, I even underlined that and look what's in the background. Now, I know most of you are going to be thinking, what's so fascinating about Egypt other than pyramids, cats, or seeing Robotnik become pharaoh?
I'll make myself pharaoh and force all of my subjects to build pyramids until someone tells me what I want to know. All bow before his bloatedness, Pharaoh Robotnik.
I mean, to be honest, when I saw that episode of Sonic for the first time, every time someone told me something about Egypt, that would be the first thing I would think about.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're about to find out, because we're starting the history of ancient Egypt, beginning on how they rose.
Alright, so our story begins 3,150 years before Christ. Egypt is split into two kingdoms. You have Upper Egypt with the white crown, and Lower Egypt with the red crown. So this man named Memes, which I'm not referring to these kind of memes, I'm referring to memes as MENES, became the first pharaoh. But the unification of Egypt was just the beginning, for this civilization was gonna last around 3,000 years, which is actually 800 years longer than China. So take that, China, you're not the only old ancient civilization. Anyways, because the history of ancient Egypt is so long, historians like to divide Egyptian history into three periods or kingdoms. The first of these so-called kingdoms began with the Old Kingdom, which lasted from 2686 to 2181 BC. There really is a lot to talk about the Old Kingdom of Egypt because that true period of greatness happened on Egypt. One of the reasons why Egypt was probably so prosperous could be because it was isolated. As you can see in this map, Egypt was only along the sides of the Nile River. The most important thing you need to know about Old Kingdom Egypt was that this was a time when Pharaoh's power began to rise. I mean, you don't only have the Pharaoh as a king of all of Egypt, but he's also the religious leader, which means he has a lot of power. I mean, he could even probably make his own gods.
Because I'm Pharaoh of Egypt, and I can do whatever I want, I will now choose a new god. I now present to you the god of music. Oh, it's so good!
Well, I think I actually kind of exaggerated there a little too much. But I was actually trying to get a point across. When a pharaoh has so much political and religious control at once, he pretty much has total control over the people. And you know, when they might have had like all those really good rulers, but you know, eventually you might also get a handful of those who become eventually crazy because of so much power they have. But one thing that I do know about them for sure is of the crown that they wear. This is, my totally legit pharaoh crown, handcrafted, homemade. Although probably this was a lot of hard work, but probably if you were to wear this in public, you'll probably become a meme, which hopefully I won't become.
And because the pharaoh has total control over the population, he pretty much could do whatever he wants, which was probably the reason why during the Old Kingdom Egypt you had a lot of pyramids being made and temples for the gods. That's why the Great Pyramids of Egypt, the ones that everybody knows about, were actually made in this period. Another thing that arose from the Old Kingdom of Egypt was the mummification, or making mummies. Pharaohs were usually the only ones to be mummified after their deaths because it was very hard and very expensive to mummify somebody. After the pharaohs were mummified, they were usually put in large tombs filled with gold and a lot of different useful items for the afterlife. You should also know that medicine, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and astronomy were made during this period. It should also be pretty obvious that the Egyptians were able to accomplish all of this because they had a lot of wealth. But this pretty much ended when a series of droughts hit Egypt, and eventually rebellion and different groups of people trying to fight over power of Egypt eventually clashed and caused the Old Kingdom of Egypt to collapse, leading Egypt to a period known as the Intermediate Period.
So after the droughts and rebellions that shook Egypt, a pharaoh, which I'm not going to say his name, he eventually came to power and was able to unite Egypt once again. The beginning of this new dynasty with this new pharaoh eventually became known as the Middle Kingdom, which lasted from 2000 BC to 1700 BC, which really wasn't that much of a long time. It was shorter than the Old Kingdom, which is why there's not that much to talk about it. Really, the only thing that you could say about the Middle Kingdom in Egypt was pretty much the time when Egypt was trying to reunify from everything that happened during the end of the Old Kingdom and the beginning of the Intermediate Kingdom.
The only other important thing you should know about the Middle Kingdom Egypt was that towards the end of this period, a group called the Hyksos conquered all of Egypt and adapted to the Egyptian culture and eventually ruled them. But the Egyptians soon after adopted their spears, bows, and other weapons made of iron and expelled them from Egypt.
So the Egyptians, they eventually adopted all these new weapons, and now eventually they kicked out pretty much everyone that was invading them. And this time, instead of being invaded, they were the invaders.
This began one last period of time for Egypt called the New Kingdom. This period of Egyptian history began in 1550 BC and ended in 1077 BC. The most notable thing about the New Kingdom of Egypt was that it was expanding militarily a lot.
And when I say a lot, it really is a lot. This is a map of the Old Kingdom. So Egypt just literally went from just this little area to all of this.
I mean, as you can see, Egypt reached its territory all the way to modern day Israel, which is why many historians like to refer to the New Kingdom of Egypt as the Egyptian Empire. This of course led to many conflicts with other countries and nations such as the Assyrians, and worst of all with Alexander the Great, who was able to conquer Egypt. After Alexander the Great's death, Egypt was being ruled by some of his generals, and eventually Egypt fell into the hands of the great Romans, who made it an Roman province.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows, only time.
Well, that's everything you need to know about the Egyptians. But if you didn't learn anything that I just talked about, there is only one thing you need to remember. The Egyptians were able to build a large civilization even before Europe had kings or even before the Romans. So while the Egyptians already had giant pyramids and statues, Europe was still pretty much just living in little villages. I hope you enjoy and also, most importantly, learn something from this video. Hopefully you learned more than this video right here.
He could have won a Grammy, buried in his jammies. Born in Arizona, born in Arizona, got a condo made of stoner.
Want to learn more about the Egyptians or you didn't find the information you were looking for? Then click right here to visit the relevant history website. I know this guy did. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and remember, those who think history is boring are least likely to become part of it.